Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Massive breaking news this morning. First of all, the Iranian president is dead after a helicopter crash in a mountainous region. We're going to have Dr. Trita Parsi on to talk about that and what the implications are, which of course are massive. That is not the only massive breaking news we have this morning, though. The International Criminal Court prosecutor has issued an application for arrest warrants against Bibi Netanyahu, Yoav Gallant, along with 3 top Hamas leaders. We have that applications and the crimes that he alleges. There are reasonable grounds to believe that these individuals were involved in committing, so we'll break that down for you as well. At the same time, we've got lots of domestic political news. President Biden spoke at the Morehouse commencement yesterday, and there were some protests, some notable words, some notable lies from the commander-in-chief, so we'll break that down for you. We're also getting some stunning economic numbers that really explain a whole lot about why people are not feeling Bidenomics in particular. And after Emily brought you the breaking news over the weekend of that horrifying video that was released of Diddy allegedly beating R&B singer Cassie in a hotel hall. I mean, just this video was absolutely horrific. He has issued a response and an apology, so we'll show you that. And also she has now issued a reply to his purported apology. So there is a whole lot to get to this morning, not to mention, Saagar, we have our own big news here with regards to breaking points, which is for all of you premium subscribers. We have moved the show to Locals. Your subscription is now on Locals, and we are also now cross-posting the show on Rumble, so it's still on all of the platforms you guys know and love.
Yes.
But it's also going to be on Rumble, and we'll be doing a little bit of exclusive content over there on Rumble as well.
Exactly right. Thank you very much, Krystal. Now, for those who have been wondering, we have some questions. Actually, the transition has been very smooth. We did so much work behind the scenes to make sure that it was basically one click. You can log into your subscription. You don't have to re-enter your password. Or you don't have to resubscribe or any of that. Everything
don't have to enter in your credit card again.
Ported over. Exactly. Now, for why, we did a whole video explaining why we're moving over to Locals. You can go and watch that either on our YouTube or on our Rumble channel. But one of the features that we're most excited about is the app. And as you guys can see actually right here, the app really is incredible. It was one of the major things that we were really happy about in our transition. So you guys can see I have the video that was our Locals announcement. There's a comment section. One of the things that we love most is you can just seamlessly turn it. You can watch everything here on your phone. You get a notification actually via the Locals app. It's a really nice experience. It also is very easily AirPlayed or Chromecast or whatever to your TV. So you can see right here, I just hit the AirPlay button and boom, I put it up on my TV within seconds. That's something that we were just not ever able to do previously. It's got a good community aspect. All the AMA, everything that you guys need is right there. So you can go ahead and log into your new Locals account if you're a premium subscriber. You will have instructions in your inbox. We will continue to send you emails all throughout this week to ease this transition. So let me reiterate this. If you have any problems whatsoever, if something is not working properly, support@locals.com. Problems big or small. Number 2, there were a lot of questions. Are we going to continue to have our RSS feed so that we don't have to necessarily listen in the Locals app? Absolutely. Don't worry about it. We're going to send the instructions on that in the email today, so look out for that. But in general, as we said, no features are being taken away. So if you want to listen to the show on Apple, Spotify, wherever, don't worry about it. That will continue to be there. We will make that very seamless and easy. We are just adding the ability to have the video on Locals, comment section, your premium subscription, everything will be there. And yeah, it has some cool features. We really like it. As Krystal said, we'll have some exclusive content on Rumble once a week or so you guys can look out for some of that. But we're just adding things here at Breaking Points. And like we said, we did a very long video just about why we're doing this on the heels of our 3-year anniversary. So please go and check that out if you're interested.
Yeah, 2 big takeaways. Premium subscribers, check your email. Check your email, both for instructions on how to switch over to Locals, which so far the feedback has been incredible and people are loving it and really amazed by the ease of transition. Shout out to Griffin for making that happen. Check your email, and if you have any problems at all, any questions, whatever, support@locals.com. Part of this, part of the deal and part of why we switched over is concierge support service to make sure you guys are getting what you need. So
they have a live chat and everything. It is really nice. Well, the news gods, whenever it rains, I guess it really pours. So what we have over here is a shocking development. The president of Iran has now been confirmed dead after a helicopter incident. Let's go ahead and put this up there on on the screen. This is the first footage that has actually emerged from, it appears, a helicopter crash that happened amidst a torrential storm. The storm conditions are absolutely shocking. We do, however, have on standby our friend of the show, Dr. Trita Parsi of the Quincy Institute. He's going to help us break down what exactly all of this means. Good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us last minute.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Dr. Parsi, we brought everybody just the images now so far. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up there on the screen. This is from the helicopter of what we have seen, as well of the actual footage, the first pictures that were coming out from the crash. Can you just tell us a little bit about what we know, and then more importantly, the implications of what the news that is happened today?
So what we know now is that the helicopter that took the president from his meeting with the president of Azerbaijan on its way back to Tehran was flying over this very mountainous and inaccessible area in northwestern Iran, and it crashed. And as it's now clear, both the foreign minister as well as the president and several others on that plane passed away. This is, of course, a huge event in Iran, and it's going to have very significant implications for the Iranian government. First of all, they're now going to have elections within the next 50 days. And it's coming at a time when the regime is extremely unpopular. The population has, by and large, completely lost faith in the idea that change can come through the ballot box. There were parliamentary elections held just a week or two ago, and the average, the national participation rate was around 42%, but in the capital of Tehran, only 7% participated in the elections. And for a government that for such a long time has viewed high participation rates as a sign of its legitimacy, as an injection of legitimacy into the system, we're talking about presidential elections with participation rates as high as 80%, which of course would be unheard of in the United States. Now it's below the American standard. And now they're going to have to try to muster and mobilize voters to participate within 50 days. And the question then is, are they going to do what they have done before, which is to essentially eliminate all candidates that are not hardliners, which is part of the reason why people stopped participating in the elections. It actually wasn't much of an election. But they did so because they wanted to consolidate their power, and they wanted to particularly do so at this very, very sensitive junction, because the current supreme leader, who's 85 years old, is likely to pass within the next couple of years. And they want to make sure that the next supreme leader is also a hardline conservative. To do that, they need to consolidate all levels of power, all institutions of power in their own hands during this period. But that is coming at the expense of a degree of support, or at least acceptance of the regime from the population, and a belief amongst the larger population that there still are ways in which they can improve their lives through participating in the system. That has now to a large extent been lost, and the question is, are they going to put up another series of conservatives for people to choose from and risk a very, very low participation, or will they actually allow it to be real elections with a much broader base set of candidates, which could increase participation, but also then would likely come at the expense of the conservatives controlling all institutions of power in Iran.
So the question is, will there be a real choice or a feeble illusion of a choice? I wanted to ask you, Dr. Parsi, Colvin, if we could put A5 up on the screen. We've all seen these images of the incredibly difficult weather conditions, which are an important part of the context, obviously, of this fatal helicopter crash. Nevertheless, especially coming as it does right now at a peaking moment of tension between Israel and Iran, there are going to be questions about potential foul play. Do you see any indications of that? And do you suspect that there will be those in Iranian society who suspect that this may have been not just a terrible tragedy, but that some sort of foul play was involved here?
There's no evidence at this point that there has been any foul play, but in a society that is so mistrusting of the media, which actually is somewhat similar to the U.S. society at this point, in which conspiracy theories are abound, and which there is massive distrust of the government as a whole, there is inevitably going to be people who will believe that something else may have happened. I think the most convincing reason as to why that that no foul play actually was taking place is just the images that you showed. It was clearly very, very bad weather conditions that not only caused the crash of the helicopter, but actually also took more than 12 hours for them to be able to find the plane because of these weather conditions. But nevertheless, because of those different factors that I mentioned, there will be a belief amongst many that perhaps something else also was at play here, whether that was an internal factor because of the very stiff rivalries that exist within the regime, particularly mindful of the secession for the supreme leader position, or whether it has something to do with the Israelis, given the very intense conflict between the Iranians and the Israelis that now again must have gone back into the shadows after this exchange of fire. And I find it quite fascinating that the message from the government is very clearly that this was an accident. They are not blaming directly Israel or external powers. At best, they're saying that this is the fault of U.S. sanctions because U.S. sanctions is a key reason as to why the Iranians don't have spare parts for their helicopters and airplanes. And I think that is precisely because they want to stop any rumors that would suggest that this was actually a result of foul play, whether that was external, which would be embarrassing for them to admit that perhaps the Israelis had the capacity of killing their president and foreign minister, or whether it's internal because they don't want to see the rivalry for this the secession turning into a secession crisis.
Got it. Nonetheless, this is going to open a major power vacuum. So let's put A6, please, up on the screen. This is from the Financial Times. They just talk and give a broader overview of who pulls the strings of power in Iran. It can be a bit of a Byzantine system for those of us here to try and to understand the various branches of government. Can you just give us some insight, as you said, as to how and what the pressures are inside the regime for who will be qualified, disqualified, and that what the stakes are for who will take this job next?
So you do have a very complex system that is deliberately non-transparent. The Iranians do not want the outside world to fully understand how the system works because they believe that it gives them a degree of protection. And this is largely because of the fact that Iran was not colonized by the Brits, but the British and the Russians were very adept at playing the Iranian political system in the 1800s, much to Iran's detriment. So one of the reactions to that is to actually try to have a system that is inexplicable to certain parts to the outside world because they believe it protects them from foreign intervention and manipulation. But what we can say is that the supreme leader, of course, is the most powerful person within that system, but he is not supreme despite of his title. He cannot rule in any way, shape, or form he wants because power is nevertheless dispersed throughout the system. In most cases, he's essentially the arbiter. He definitely has his tilt of his own, but he's been in very intense power struggles with previous presidents. Part of the reason why there was the preference for Raisi as president and why we saw this manipulation to ensure that he would get elected was precisely because he was viewed as being so pliant and that it would put to an end the power struggle between the president and the supreme leader. In Washington, there has been a tendency to overplay the role of the president when the president is doing things that we find problematic. So we put a lot of attention to Ahmadinejad and his rhetoric and viewed him as being the person who was actually setting policy. But when you had presidents like Rouhani, who was more conciliatory, then the argument in Washington tended to be that presidents don't matter. So it's been rather a self-serving way of looking at it. But reality is they do matter depending on their personalities. And in the case of Raisi, he mattered less precisely because he took his job as being one that would essentially be in line with the supreme leader, not challenge, and essentially be very pliant to him.
What do you see as the global risks of this now additional layer of chaos on top of many other layers of chaos that we're seeing globally? And just to remind people, obviously, of the context here, we just had these extraordinary exchanges where Israel first attacks an Iranian diplomatic building in Damascus, assassinating top military, a leader there. Then you have Iran respond in a way that was both calculated and premeditated and sort of pre-announced in a way that made it possible to shoot down the Iranian attack. Nevertheless, it was quite an extensive barrage aimed at Israel. Now we're in this period of question mark of what happens next. Is there a further escalation? So help us understand, with all of that context, what you see as the major risks and things to be concerned about here.
We're not yet at the stage in which we can say that, there's going to be chaos in Iran. There's going to be challenges and problems that the regime will be facing with this upcoming election, but we're not at the stage of chaos or instability. However, we may end up in a scenario in which the government will be somewhat debilitated, and as it will have to focus more on its domestic scene rather than on foreign policy. That means that a lot of different things will go on autopilot, support for Hezbollah, Hamas, etc. But one area that I think could be quite concerning for the United States is that the Iranians have, as part of an indirect negotiation between the United States and Iran, put pressure on Iraqi and Syrian militias that the Iranians are supporting. They put pressure on them to cease their attacks against U.S. troops. As you know, once the Israelis started bombing Gaza, these militias started attacking U.S. troops and bases as a way of pressuring the U.S. to pressure Israel for a ceasefire. After 3 American soldiers got killed in Jordan, the Biden administration started bombing quite extensively these different militias while also negotiating with Iran, and the Iranians pulled them back. A question I have is whether a debilitating situation in Iran could actually lead to a situation in which Iran's control over these militias will weaken. And mindful of the fact that many of them are more eager to take on the U.S. than the Iranians are, we may end up seeing them restarting their attacks on U.S. troops and U.S. bases, which of course would further put into focus the fact that this type of a situation will likely continue and will blow up again as long as you have the war in Gaza continue with no ceasefire. And it will come at a very bad time for the Biden administration.
Just want to emphasize for people how counter-narrative what you just said is. You basically are indicating Iran is a moderating influence on these militias, which is the opposite of the presentation we typically see in the American press. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.